And speaking of the United States, Donald Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner has flagged off the Israel-Palestine Peace and Economic Conference in Bahrain just a while ago. The conference is part of the Trump administration's economic peace plan for the Israel-Palestine conflict. The U.S. plans to launch its $50 billion economic formula at the Manama during the two-day international meeting.
Thinking about solving this conflict and the vision, he said, "This is great."
Neither the Israelis nor Palestinian governments are in attendance at the Manama event. Speaking at the conference, Kushner said that the U.S. has not given up on the Palestinians and called the plan an opportunity of the century.
We all agree on the following goals. We want to see peace, security, and prosperity for Palestinians, Israelis, and everyone else throughout the world. We want the freedom for people to worship without persecution. We want people to live together with dignity and respect. And we want to create better lives for their children and for future generations.
Meanwhile, a series of protests against the conference continue in West Bank and Gaza. Hundreds staged protests against the U.S. so-called deal of the century. Dozens marched through West Bank city, burning caskets, reading "Deal of the Century Bonded." In Gaza, Palestinians burned pictures of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Shops were closed and black flags and signs rejecting the conference were hung across the empty streets of the coastal city.
حاملة علم فلسطين لأقول للناس اللي راحوا على المنامة إنه فلسطين مش للبيع. فلسطين هاي من حقي، ما من حقكم أنتم تروحوا تفاوضوا عني بالنيابة عني. أنا بنت فلسطينية وبنت مناضلين وبنت مجاهدة. أنا فلسطينية، ما من حقكم أنتم تبيعوا أرضنا. إحنا ما بنتنازل عن أرضنا، وفلسطين مش للبيع، وحق العودة حق واجب شرعي.
Protests also broke out in Palestinian refugee camps in Jordan and Lebanon. In Beirut, demonstrators gathered outside the United Nations headquarters to voice their concern as they waved Palestinian flags. Now, it's been 8 months since Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi was murdered in Istanbul. Ever since his fiancée Cengiz has been fighting for justice. She's now taken her appeal to the United Nations. Cengiz has called for an international investigation in Khashoggi's death. This comes after the United Nations released a 100-page-long report on the journalist's murder. The report follows a 6-month-long investigation by Agnes Callamard, who is the UN Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial executions. The report has accused Saudi Arabia of carrying out a quote-unquote deliberate, premeditated execution. Echoing the report's findings, Cengiz said that the Saudi government had eliminated evidence, rendering its investigation invalid. Meanwhile, Callamard has said that the UN and the international community must be able to hold a fair investigation and trial in the Khashoggi murder. And now let's cut live across to Hong Kong, where protest groups are calling on people to gather in central Hong Kong and march to foreign consulates to present petition letters urging pressure on China at the upcoming G20 meeting in Japan about Hong Kong's recent political turmoil. Remember, China has refused to take up the issue that has been plaguing Hong Kong lately when it comes to the extradition bill that called on several protests, that has invited several protests from the youngsters there. And that's why you can see these are live visuals coming in from Hong Kong, where protest groups have called on people to gather in central Hong Kong and march to foreign consulates to present petition letters urging pressure on China at the upcoming G20 meeting in Japan regarding Hong Kong's recent political turmoil. It's been quite a few days since the protests got over. They had been calling for the resignation of Hong Kong's Chief Executive Carrie Lam and for the withdrawal of the extradition bill. And after this short hiatus of the protests, you see the protesters gathering again, seeking petitions for the issue of Hong Kong to be taken up at the G20 summit in Japan.
大家後少少好冇？好，大家就後少少。啊，都冇人理嘅。喂，哥仔，我係你後面，你咁樣你冇嘢係嘛？
From Hong Kong, let's shift focus over to the United Kingdom, where the race to replace Theresa May as leader of the Conservative Party has reached its final stage, with Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt remaining in the contest for the leadership. The Conservative Party has announced that the new Prime Minister will be revealed on July 23rd. It is now up to the Conservative Party's 160,000 members to vote and choose the winner. Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt will go head-to-head at a hustings event around the country with their pitches to party members to win their support. A candidate achieving more than 50% of the vote among party members will be declared as leader of the party. Currently, Boris Johnson is the clear favourite to replace Theresa May as the new UK Prime Minister. But his campaign has been dominated by the news of the police entering his London house after receiving a complaint from his neighbours. The neighbours had called the police after hearing loud altercation from his house on Saturday morning. He has repeatedly ducked the questions about this incident. Once a successor is confirmed on July 22nd, Theresa May would be expected to visit the Queen Elizabeth II to formally tender her resignation as the Premier. Her replacement would then make his or her visit to Buckingham Palace to be confirmed in office. May announced her resignation last month after repeatedly failing to get a Brexit deal through the Parliament.